Begun again.
You were talking to me a little bit earlier about the nature of attention in the work, and you mentioned something that Michel Conge had said about attention. Can you just recap that, what he actually said, and your own understanding of the role attention plays?
I am where attention is. Where my attention is weak, I am weak. He said something along those lines, not a full quote that I just said, but attention is the most important part of this work, because where your attention is exactly where your consciousness is. If your attention isn't on the task at hand, you are not conscious in that moment. And what reading this book will do for a person is precisely that. Bring their attention.
The silence is good. Don't wish to fill it mechanically. So the
reading of Beelzebub's tales was meant, as Mr. Gurdjieff himself said, to... the first chapter is called The Arousing of Thought, to awaken the thought, to make the thought more attentive on what is, as opposed to what was last night, what was yesterday, what one had for supper, as opposed to what could happen in 2 minutes from now, 2 days from now, 2 hours from now, 20 years from now, to make the thought attentive to now, because the thought is what blocks. The thought is a block. All those thoughts flying around one's mind block one from connecting to a higher source, to the higher source, where this teaching comes from, where one's own knowledge comes from. One's own knowledge isn't one's own, it's what one's received through efforts. One makes effort, one receives knowledge and understanding through one's effort. If one is trying continually along the line of making efforts on oneself, on working on oneself, on one's attention, then one can receive. One is making oneself an available instrument that is ready to be used in a certain way for a certain definite purpose.
And the role of attention and self-remembering, how do you view those two elements of the work?
The role of attention, where one's attention is, there is one's consciousness. As Michel Conge also said, where my attention is where I am, and where my attention is weak, there I am also weak.
Mm-hmm.
The attention should always be focused on the task at hand. Whatever the task may be, however tedious it may seem, you do it attentively with full awareness and consciousness on that task and what you are doing in that particular moment, whether it be sweeping the floor or reading Beelzebub's tales or anything, just anything. Your attention is supposed to be centered in that particular moment. Attention should be always centered in the here and the now of the very moment that something is happening. Centered in the here and now, in the root of all of existence. That is where you will find yourself, that is where you will find your understanding, that is where you will find everything. All and everything is centered in the here and the now.
And what is it that actually takes one out of the here and the now? Even you personally, or just an
Even
objective?
me personally. Necessary thinking about the past or the future. Identification. Identification mostly. I've written something down in my notes about this, and I believe it would be very useful to read some of it.
Go on.
The general state of man as he is that of non-being.
Right. This is the first time I've heard this. You haven't read this to me before, have
Yes,
you?
because I wrote it down last night. One simply isn't, because one is never centered in the root of all existence, which is the here and now, the eternity of a single moment stretched out into infinity, a state of letting go and of thoughtlessness and uh, sensitivity to what is necessary. A state
Can
of
I stop you on that sentence, because it's very, very important, and one can very, very easily just glide by it. A sensitivity to what one is, to what is.
sensitivity to what is necessary.
I'm just going to write that down.
The identification in which man lives is what is preventing him from being sensitive to what is, because his identifications, his pictures of himself, images, thoughts, ideas of who he is, of what everything around him is, are subjective, and they sever him from what actually is in this present moment. All of that other stuff is imagination. Positive or negative, you think something is good or bad, that's all imagination. Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Doesn't Hamlet say that? Yeah.
Act 2, Scene 2. The issue of sensitivity to what is, for me, when I do it, it's a bringing oneself totally with all centres into this precise moment, and as you say, being sensitive to what is.
Yes.
Because it actually is. I'm sitting here at the dinner table, you're sitting opposite me, this is.